operational reliability, that's what we are looking for, right? And that's what we want to achieve, and making sure that operations are safe and without accidents or incidents. And for me, the human is going to affect that, at least for my foreseeable future in this industry. I mean, way beyond, there might be spaceships or whatever it is, but as long as I'm here, it's going to be humans that is going to be on board ships, and they are the ones that we need to focus on, because they are actually powering the world trade. Bringing it all together, it's all about people. We have to have a holistic view of where the future is coming. I mean, we talked about it. Connectivity is increasing. When is the question? Because I agree with you, Apo. I've heard it for the last 10 years. Now it's coming. We see some more evidence with Starlink and these new competitors coming online. But again, this for me is the key thing when we talk about the future and the training and the competences that we are looking for going forwards. And for us, we want to bring this all together as one holistic view from where we stand. I also want to talk a little bit about the lack of standards, right? Or actually the numerous standards that we have. There is no joint one, and that's obviously one of the challenges that we all have, because there are BIMCO, there is IMO, there is all these different standards, and which of them is valid? One, when we go to and being evaluated, which is the one that we need to adapt to? So I agree, we need to also find that level of standards when we look upon the new future of shipping. We also talk, I mean, just replacing old equipment with new modern equipment and keep on doing the same thing. It's what, I mean, there was a very famous person that said, keep on doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, right? I mean, it's not happening. If you change the equipment, you need to change your procedures. That's also one of the challenges we have going forward, is the management of change and the willingness to change. And we see that as well when we talk about all these new technologies that are available. Because today, with all the solutions, we can go online. It's not a hindrance. It's more the management of change that we need to focus on. I mean, and every day we see that increased pressure on us and the seafarers to deliver flawless operations of the ship. And when we look upon the pace of change and the two things that we are focusing on and we see for the future, is the technology factors that is going to impact the future, and it's the human factor. And how we combine those two and make sure that they live and breathe the same language. In the old days, we saw, I mean, I talk pre-COVID here, right? In the old days, the pace of change was actually quite slow in the maritime industry. But when the pandemic hit us, the pace of change has been increasingly much higher. And I think for the good for the shipping industry and the maritime industry, because the pace of change now is much higher. We also, I mean, you look upon this and you can actually see that this is true, because over the last couple of years, we have about 300 niche companies, startups that has come into the maritime industry. They have invested about $3 billion in niche products in our area. So that's another factor for me, that now this has been seen and being interested for others as well, and not only this small community that we used to be. If we then look upon what is the future seafarer, and how do we need to make sure that we train them and give them, I mean, the capabilities that we want for them going forwards, right? I mean, basically, we want to have a IT professional that has everything when it comes to software and IT, and they know everything about that, because that's what we see on board today. It's no longer, it's all computer based. So we want an IT professional. Same time, they need to be the best seafarer in terms of that old traditional handwork of managing your ship. They also need to be technology savvy when it comes to dealing with engines and all those. So it's a quite complicated picture that we are painting for ourselves going forwards. And the question is as well then, I also see over the last couple of years, we have not promoted the maritime industry and the work in the maritime industry. I mean, maybe not us, but we have not gotten the support from flag states or countries, right? Especially during the pandemic. So how do we attract these highly specialist people? And are we ready to pay the amount of money that they will demand to come on board our ships? Because now we might have to go to the university and find the best IT engineer there to come on board our ships, because that's the future. Also, I look on my family. I look at my daughter, and they do everything. She's 20 years old. She's studying to become a doctor. They do everything online. Tests, they do all the exams. They do. I mean, everything's come online. The information is available for them at any time, at anywhere. I mean, on their mobile devices, on their mobile phone, they can see everything. So we have to do the same thing, because the generation coming to us wants everything to be available for them at their convenience. If it's the middle of the night, if it's on an airplane, if it's on board a ship, it needs to be available at all times. So for us, this anything, anytime, anywhere is also very important, to provide that technology on your simple thing as your mobile phone. Connecting as well then the learning needs and predicting the learning needs from end to end. I mean, it's one thing about the STCW training, I mean, which is, I mean, for me quite outdated and old-fashioned if you look upon shipping today. There are new demands coming, and we need to have an holistic view, because today with the information that we can gather, we have access to, on an annual basis, your planned maintenance, for example, making sure that you have a critical planned maintenance on board, making sure that you have the right and the competent people on board your ship. And I also look, I mean, training for me is one thing, but what we are looking for as well is to measure the competence and how are you actually performing when you're doing your task. I mean, training, I can go to a training, I can get the checkbox, yes, I passed the training, but how do I take that skill and use that in reality? So for us, it's all about that comprehensive picture, to see the seafarer from end to end, and also making sure that they can prove their skills and competence that they have theoretically shown. I'm just gonna use, this is official data. These are things that you can get from port state controls. And for me, looking at port state controls, that's something actually which has a standard, which is the same. We can measure that. It's something that all ports and major ports are doing, and it's more or less following the same procedure. So what can you do with data and data-driven decisions, right? I mean, I've just taken one of our customers here. I mean, they had 62 detentions last year. They had a total of 271 days off hire. So what can we do with this data? What does this tell us? I mean, just calculating the cost for off hire of 271 days, I mean, that's quite a significant amount of money. If you then bring that down further, we can benchmark and use this data for benchmarking the customer against each other, because as I said, the port state control data is the same. And from this, we can obviously look at where did we have challenges when it comes to performance in port state control data. So here you see fire and safety. I'm not surprised, because they are normally there all the time anyway. If I then look at these two things, and I go then to this specific customer and look at, okay, what is the training that you performed last year? So I can see they had about 60 detention on fire and safety, but you can see also they did very little training on fire and safety. So obviously with simple facts and simple data, you can make data-driven decisions automatically. You don't have to do a lot of investigation, because the system and the AI that we have will provide this for you. And easily you can put targets here, right? Now we have 271 days. What is an average OPEX cost for a container vessel? 5,000? So that's the minimum loss that you do. Then we can easily have a KPI to half that in the next 12 months. I want to finish off with talking about how do we see this going forward. We think that we need to go from generic to individual. We don't need any generic training anymore. We need individual training that is adapted to the individual. Because we have different needs, we have different gaps. So looking at the person and helping and supporting the person and the individual to strive in their future competences and skills is where the future lies for us. Focusing on the individual, focusing on the seafarer, that's what's going to make the difference. Also, the way we do the training, I mean, it needs to be blended. We talked about it, micro-learning. It needs to be simulation exercises. It needs to be animations, games. All of these things needs to be included as a blended learning form, because not everybody learns the same way. A variety of assessment needs to be done. I mean, knowledge-wise, of course, but also applying your skills and competences in reality needs to be a part of the evaluation as well, to make sure that you don't only have the theoretical knowledge. AI for proctoring, making sure that the person doing the test is actually the person performing it. So for us, what I want to leave here is that we want to go from generic to individual. We want to use simple data to show simple things and make good improvements. With the adaptive learning, we believe that we can lower or have 30% less training, spend 30% less on training than we do today. Imagine what you can do with those 30% in hours on board the ship. Thank you very much.